Annette Magnus, welcome to KTNV.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this new website that's upstadiumscam.com. You're with Battleborn Progress, well-known progressive group. Who's behind this besides you?
Well, there's a lot of different community groups and supporters behind this website. And I think it's important to note that, we're against this because it's bad for Nevadans. It's bad policy to use public tax dollars to support a stadium that we don't even know will ever be built, first of all. We don't know if it'll be successful. I can think of 100 other things that our tax dollars should be going towards, like education or mental health services or various other things that desperately are in need of funding. Look, I'm a big football fan. I love the Broncos. I want them to come here as often as possible, but I don't think we should spend public dollars to do it, and that's what this website's all about.
You would go to a Raiders stadium and cheer against the Raiders?
Absolutely.
That is something else. So I'm going to give you another chance to answer the question.
Sure.
Who is really behind this? It says on your website, stadiumscam.com, the broad ideological spectrum. Name some other groups that are behind this.
So I know there's some elected officials that have been outspoken about this issue. One in particular is June Kiliani. I know she has been outspoken about
Clark
that.
County Commissioner, go on.
Myself, and I think there are other groups as well. I'm not as well versed on this as probably some of the other folks who have started this. Howard Watts has helped me get into this and really understand the issue.
He's worked for progressive groups too.
Absolutely,
we should tell people.
one of my very dear friends, and so he asked me, to join this effort, and I happily did so because it's the right thing to do. We were already being outspoken about this. And for me, it's really important to educate the community about why this is not good policy, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Who is funding this? Is another gaming company that's a rival to the Las Vegas Sands funding it?
Honestly, I don't know who's funding the website. Nobody's funding us to do this work. It's just the right thing to do, and that's what my group believes in. If there is something that needs to be talked about, we need to stand up and we need to be the ones to shout from the rooftops and say, this is not the right thing to do. So we're not getting any funding to be here. I believe strongly that this is the wrong policy for Nevadans.
You keep saying this. There is no plan yet. All we know is what the developers have proposed, which is $750 million in room taxes, public money. They say it's a tourist tax that most Nevadans don't pay. Why is that argument not persuasive to you?
Well, it's not persuasive because we still go to the Strip. We still frequent these places.
But it's mostly tourists, be honest.
It is mostly tourists, but those tax dollars should be going to other things. The room tax was created to diversify our economy and help support other things like mental health services, like education. And so in my mind, we should be spending those tax dollars on the things that matter most to Nevadans, which is making sure that our communities and our people come first. That's the most important thing behind this. And so for me, it's really important to talk about those issues and say the room tax was designed for exactly that, to provide supplemental income for these services. And if the money is being diverted to something else, I have a real problem with that.
It's interesting because this would entail a room tax increase, about 1% the way it's structured now, plus you have a smaller fraction going for a $1.4 billion expansion of the convention center. But that wouldn't take money away from what the room tax is going for now. You mentioned mental health and some other needs, but that's not what the room tax is used for now. It's used for education, it's used for local government, and it's used for transportation. That's essentially what the bulk of it is for, and then about 30% goes, or so I think, goes to the convention authority. You're not really taking it away, and some people might say, you know what, if we can get the Oakland Raiders to come here, it would so change the dynamic of this town that we ought to do it.
But look at the stadium that was just built by the T-Mobile Arena and
That's
the NHL.
An arena, it's not a stadium, much smaller.
I understand that. But the problem is that was built with all private money. It was put up by another gaming company. They funded the project, they put it up, and now we have an NHL team coming here. I support that wholeheartedly. I will go support our team. I'm happy to do that. I will pay for all of the things that go into going to a game and supporting our community. I'm okay spending that money. But if we build a stadium, what guarantees do we have that they're actually even going to come here, number one? And then if attendance isn't good or something happens and we can't keep them here, what happens to all that money that we just spent on building a huge stadium that now nobody's going to use? I think it's just we need to see if the NHL team is even going to work here before we jump to all these conclusions that we need a giant stadium that's going to hold a football team.
Well, the second question, the second issue brought up, I think, is salient because it's happened in other communities where teams have left and taxpayers have been left holding the bag. I think that's legitimate. But my understanding is that this thing is not going to get built unless the Raiders commit to come here. You don't buy that?
I don't buy that.
Why?
I was having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, and I think this is all a way. You know, I just don't know that they're actually going to show up. I don't know if we actually build this thing that they're actually going to come here.
But I'm just saying it would be contingent on the Raiders being voted
but
by the
there's a
NFL
lot-
owners
but
next year.
Yes, but I don't even know if all those owners are going to go along with that, right?
Then the stadium doesn't get built and there's no diversion.
Right. So then it's a moot point and we're arguing this for nothing. But at the same time, even just having this, and this is a conversation we've had many times, whether it's a soccer stadium or a football stadium, these are conversations that we keep having over and over and over again. And the problem with it is we have all these other issues that need to be fixed before we start building stadiums. I'm sorry, our education system is still one of the dead last in the country. There is more we can be doing to fix that system. And if any of that money, if we're going to increase taxes, the room tax, let's have it go to education. Let's not build a stadium with that money.
Can't we do both? Can't we fix education and get a stadium?
One would hope, but we haven't been able to fix education yet. So how are we going to do both?
You know, scam is a very, very serious word, Annette Magnus. You know it's a strong word. Why did you use the word scam? I mean, that implies impropriety. It implies people are being bamboozled. Don't you trust this stadium committee? It's made up of business people, of elected officials, of an appointed official, Steve Hill, who was the head of the governor's office of economic development.
No.
Scam?
I think it is a scam. I think they're scamming Nevadans. I think they're selling us a bill of goods to say, hey, look at this shiny object. Everybody should get behind this. But at the end of the day, this is really going to have an impact on our communities. And the people need to know that. And they need to understand how serious this is.
Maybe it'll have a good impact. Maybe
it will, but I don't want to have to pay for that. I don't want my public dollars going towards a stadium. I just don't think that's a good use of our public dollars.
Stop the Las Vegas stadium scam. I'm reading from the website now. Keep public funds out of billionaires' bank accounts. Really?
We are supplementing them to build this stadium. Sheldon Adelson has more money than anyone else. Steve Wynn has more money than anyone else.
Well, Steve Wynn's not part of this. Maybe not yet.
Not yet. So we know that there are billionaires on the Strip who are calling for this to happen. Okay, if they want this so bad, then foot the bill for it. If you want this stadium and you want them to come here, pay the bill.
I've asked Steve Hill and I've asked others what the argument would be for having public funds used for a stadium. And there are several arguments, including that it could change the dynamic of the community, that it could bring a public benefit by creating jobs, by creating activity around it. Isn't that legitimate?
Sure, that's legitimate. Again, I don't want to have to pay to build it. If a private entity wants to build this and the liability rests on them and not the taxpayers, I'm okay with that. That is a legitimate business decision, and I am supportive of that. But look, let's look at Sheldon Adelson's track record as well. I mean, his hotels, they're non-union. They don't treat their workers fairly. I've had a problem with his establishment for years. What guarantees that we're going to get good jobs out of this stadium being built with Sheldon Adelson being behind it? I just don't trust the people who are involved with this right now.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because that might lead people to believe this is really just a partisan thing for you.
No.
You're a progressive. You support mostly or almost all Democrats. You don't like Sheldon Adelson because he's non-union, maybe because he's rich too. I know how you progressives hate rich people. But I guess the serious question is, how much is this about Sheldon Adelson, not just, maybe if it was a Democratic billionaire, you'd be fine with it.
No, because there are Democrats who support this proposal, and I am adamantly opposed to that. I don't care what party is proposing this. I think it's a bad idea regardless. And I would say that to a Democrat, just like I would say that to a Republican. We're a nonpartisan group. We fight for issues that we believe in. And this is one of those issues that it doesn't matter what side it's coming from, it's a bad idea.
But you're nonpartisan in name only.
No, we're
You're
not.
nonpartisan
John,
in name.
you know that's not
come
true.
on.
I will go after a Democrat just like I want to go.
Really? When was the last time you went after a Democrat?
James Orenthal is a great example of that.
On guns?
Yes, on guns. We went after him wholeheartedly last session.
That's an exception to the rule.
No, it's not.
Why don't you just embrace it?
It's not true. It's not true, John. I will go after a Democrat. And look, the Democrats who are supporting this, I'm not supportive of this issue. I don't think it's a good issue, and I don't think that they should be supporting this. Our public money needs to make sure, we need to make sure that we're using our public money responsibly, and it's going to the things that our state needs the most.
Are you saying you've talked to Democratic legislators who support this? They do?
Yes.
But they don't even know what the proposal is yet.
Well, they support the Raiders coming here. They support the proposal being talked about.
Some of them are in a video
Yes, they
put
are.
forth by Sheldon Adelson, including the state Senate minority leader, Aaron Ford, Kelvin Atkinson, who's a big Raiders fan, both in that video. Have you talked to both of them?
I have had conversations with all of these folks about this. And look, they know our stance on this. And I think it's okay. We can disagree with leaders on things. I do it all the time. Last week I was talking about an issue I disagreed with Senator Reid on. We can disagree with our leaders and still have productive conversations about this. I understand where they're coming from. I hope they understand where we're coming from. But at the same time, I have issues that I have to fight for every single day, and this is one of those issues that I have to stand behind because I don't believe our tax dollars should be going towards this stadium. I just don't.
Tell me what issue you disagreed with Senator Reid on. Come on, this I got to hear.
It was marijuana.
Marijuana, yeah, because you're for legalization.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's against legalization. You are pure, if nothing else, in your progressivism. Let's talk about legislators. I interviewed Jim Murren right here and talked to him about this. And people perceive MGM as being against this for the reason that you said, because they have a privately financed arena. Murren says that's unfair, that he supports the stadium as long as it makes sense, that if this is just that the public money component is too large as it is right now. In response to that, the Senate Majority Leader, Michael Roberson, went on Twitter and said that this issue is inextricably linked to the convention center expansion, essentially the Sands position. His tweet was immediately retweeted by a couple of Sands lobbyists. What did you think when you saw that?
That he's in the pocket of Sheldon Adelson. Yes. I mean, I think it's abundantly clear whose side he's on and what he's fighting for. He needs to get reelected. He needs his fellow Republicans to get reelected. Sheldon Adelson is one of their biggest donors, and he needs to keep them happy. And so however he needs to thread that needle, he's going to do that.
That's pretty strong. He's in the pocket of Sheldon Adelson?
Absolutely.
You really
I believe on Facebook I said he was the puppet of Sheldon Adelson because
really?
I believe that.
You really do?
Absolutely.
Do you think they already have the votes to do this and you're just whistling in the dark?
They may have the votes to do this, but it's our responsibility to call attention to this issue, educate voters, educate Nevadans about this issue, and say that this is a scam. This stadium is a scam because we are scamming Nevadans out of the money that belongs to us to build something that we don't even know if it's going to come to fruition.
There's something on this website. I'll just read people a little bit on the website. In cities across the country, the public is on the losing end of deals to pay for stadiums. Teams and other investors make money, but more tax dollars are spent than ever get collected. Costs are almost always higher than estimated. Have you guys really looked at other stadium deals?
If you look at other states, this is the case. You can see in other states that there are stadiums being built with public dollars, and then if something happens, like you said, teams pull out or whatever happens, the taxpayers are left to foot the bill. I don't think that's okay. I don't want that responsibility on my shoulders. You want to talk about building a stadium. Let's build a stadium for UNLV. How about that? I know that's been
This is for UNLV.
Come on.
You don't believe that?
No, I don't.
What do you think?
Absolutely not. They're using this as an excuse to get a stadium here, as an excuse for UNLV.
Sounds like a pretty good excuse to get professional football to Las Vegas, no?
Well, I would love to get professional football to Las Vegas. I would love to have it here. Biggest NFL fan you'll find. I don't think this is the way to go about doing it. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
So let's wrap this up. And let me ask you, you've been around politics a long time. You and I have known each other a long time. I think being progressive doesn't always mean being a realist, but you have to have a goal in mind here. There's a petition here. You want people to sign. These things rarely go anywhere. You know that. What's the goal?
Here's the goal, is to organize the community, to make people aware of this issue, and then to mobilize them when it comes time to needing to mobilize them and make their voices heard. There's always an end goal with a petition. It doesn't just stop with people signing a petition. Then you use that to organize. Then you use that to mobilize and turn people out, whether it's to legislative session or to hearings that are happening, because we know that this is not a good deal for Nevadans. And when Nevadans start to understand what this is about, they're going to be opposed to this.
Are you going to the meeting on Thursday?
We're gonna be watching.
Are you gonna have a protest of any kind at the meeting?
I don't know about that yet, but that we'll be watching for sure.
All right, please come back and tell us the progress of this. Really appreciate.
Thank you for
willingness to
having
come out.
me.
All right.